What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Our first question comes from Hiromatsu, who asks why Palpatine sometimes covers up his scars, even though he publicly announced that he was deformed by the Jedi.
It's interesting timing. We were just talking about this on our Jedi Council meeting on Patreon, and it is strange that he would be like in the Senate making a big speech about like, look how messed up my face is now, but then still go ahead and like pretend it didn't happen sometimes, in propaganda specifically. And someone pointed out that it's a lot like maybe FDR, who not everyone knew that he had polio and was in a wheelchair most of the time, just people closest to him. So it might be that like he made that speech to the Senate to turn the Senate against the Jedi, but maybe the galaxy as a whole, especially in the Outer Rim, like they didn't need to know that Palpatine had a messed up face.
Yeah, I think it was purely to get the sympathy at that time. And then, like you said, for the propaganda, he doesn't want to look weak in any way.
Right.
To the general public.
I think that's based on just like real world stuff where politicians, well, specifically like despots and tyrants, will be like, look how strong I am all the time, and like the propaganda will tell a different story. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably just they were drawing a parallel there. But yeah, it's more just a case of, I think maybe the senators all knew, but the farther away from Palpatine you got, I think it was, I guess he's just a normal, kindly looking old man.
Phil VE wants to know why lightsabers are able to absorb force lightning sometimes and deflect it other times.
I think that the deflection only seems to really happen when it's like close to Palpatine, or that's the only time we really see it. And I would just guess that's a matter of not all the lightning is being absorbed, especially when he just won't stop. He won't stop shooting it out, and I guess it just bounces back if it's that close to him.
This is just like a very simple headcanon answer for me, but I feel like it's like a tilting thing. If you tilt the lightsaber back a little bit, it's going to absorb it. If you tilt it forward, it's gonna
maybe
bounce it back.
Maybe. I was kind of, the first time I read the question, I thought they meant like just why can lightsabers absorb them at all? And I think that's interesting to think about too, because I guess like the lightsaber, they're both energy, but the lightsaber is basically made by the Force. I mean, it's a Force-imbued crystal, and the lightning is made of the Force as well. So I think that there's probably kind of a light versus dark thing going on there, which is just, I thought that was kind of cool. I hadn't thought about that before.
What's more interesting and mind-boggling is how Yoda's hand can do it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, again, it's the lightning is just the Force. So every living being has the Force within them, and Yoda just knows how to channel it so that he can take something destructive and turn it into energy within him, or he can shoot it back out. But yeah, it's trippy stuff to think about.
Alden Diaz asks if we'd like to see a Star Wars story set completely beyond the physical world. So we almost got something like this with the midichlorians.
Well, I don't think that would have been completely beyond. Like, his question goes on to say, basically like the afterlife and the netherworld of the Force, where we're dealing kind of completely with Force priestesses and Mortis gods, and but maybe even beyond that. But yeah, George Lucas was talking about how he was going to go into like the Wills and the midichlorians and all that stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't want to see like a whole movie set like this, but just like the Mortis arc, I think it would be kind of cool maybe in Kenobi if there was like an episode that was kind of super trippy like that.
I tend to agree. Like, it's always kind of a gamble when you go into that really weird Force stuff, and I Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. World Between Worlds I love. The Mortis stuff was very odd to me at first, and I've come around on it a lot. But it's still just something like, the more you reveal about the Force and the fewer mysteries there are surrounding it, I don't know. I like having it kind of be an unknown. But yeah, like an episode where it's all Obi-Wan's just spirit journey or something, I think that'd be interesting. And I also think that you kind of need someone to ground it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think Star Wars works so well because Luke is like this everyman. We're learning about the Force along with him. He has no idea what he's doing. He's in over his head. So are we. So we would need someone to like be able to connect with that isn't a Force god wandering the netherworld of the Force. I think Obi-Wan or someone like that would be a good conduit for the audience.
It'd be interesting if we did get an episode like that for Kenobi, and it kind of like bounced back between Obi-Wan and the Force realm, whatever you want to call it, and Vader. What he's up to.
Yeah, I mean, he's done in the comics. It's shown his meditations in the Force, and he has kind of like his own little. I think that's supposed to just be the turmoil in his mind, but it does have like this visual reality to it, which is pretty neat.
Brendan Bozarth wants to know if Pong Krell would have been accepted by Palpatine if he had survived the events on Umbara.
I think maybe to a degree. I feel like Pong Krell would have been a worthy applicant for the Inquisitorius.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, he probably would have tried to make him an Inquisitor.
Yeah, I don't know that Krell would have accepted that. I wonder. He's a very proud person, and it seemed like maybe he wanted to be second in command, probably eventually in command. I think he maybe wanted to be in Dooku's position. But I think Palpatine would have been like, whoa, slow your roll there. You can just chill and be an Inquisitor, and maybe we'll see. But yeah, I think he would have been accepted.
I think he may have, like, after all the events, if he had survived, I think he might have even just gone into hiding. Like, even for him, seeing Order 66 happen, like, all the Jedi being killed, I don't know that he would just be strolling on up to old Palps asking for a job.
Well, like, he basically hints that he's trying to get on Palpatine's good side. He knows that there's another Force in the galaxy, and he's like, I'm trying to sabotage the Republic because I know the Republic's about to fall. We're like just about to get back to these episodes in our rewatch. It's a shame if we like hurried up a little bit. It'd be more fresh in our minds. But I do think he was trying to like buff up his resume for whatever evil entity was out there. But it's interesting. We don't know how far he would have gone I can't remember if he knew the destruction of the Jedi was imminent. If he would have been cool with all that. We know he was cool with sacrificing clones, no problem. But how far gone was he?
Right. Mustafarian and Brandon Velasquez both asked if Padme knew she was having twins, or did she make up the names Luke and Leia on the spot?
I have to imagine she knew. I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, they have doctors.
Yeah, like, they have all this medical, like, it's the past, but come on. Like, I think maybe she was just playing coy with everyone. It was like, most people didn't know, and she was like, Anakin, I'm pregnant, and then she'd be like, surprise, it's twins, wee! Like one of those.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that she wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, that whole pregnancy or giving birth scene would have been way different if the pregnancy giving birth robot was like, all right, here we go again. And she's like, wait, what?
It's interesting because it's like, okay, it feels like something that she would have just told Anakin, hey, I'm pregnant with twins. But Vader is supposed to not know that Luke has a sister. Mm-hmm. So it is this, like, it's just one of those things where you make the prequels after the originals and then you're like, some of this doesn't quite line up, and that's fine.
And it's quite possible that she was going to keep it as a surprise.
But I don't think she made up the names on the spot. If she did, she handled it really well.
Yeah.
Like, she knew Luke, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, there's another one? Leia. Like, there was none of that. Yeah. She knew. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content like audio commentaries for the films, and we're doing audio commentaries for all the Clone Wars episodes right now. This week's episode is Nomad Droids. It's a weird one, but that's available right now if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. Jacob the Hodge asks if droids are referring to their literal maker or some sort of deity when they say, thank the maker.
I think it's just kind of a thing droids say, like they have their own little culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more so their literal maker than a deity because of what C-3PO says about impersonating a deity. So I don't think the droids have their own deity that they think about.
Well, 3PO does in Attack of the Clones when Anakin shows up. He's like, the Maker. So yeah. I think they probably do maybe have some sort of reverence for their literal maker. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's just kind of it's probably become a cultural idiom for droids where they're just like, oh, thank the Maker. Like, I don't think they worship their makers.
Yeah. It's like your mama jokes.
Yeah, but they probably, yeah, sure. But they probably also have great respect for the people that did make them.
Robert Bruno wants to know if Max Rebo survived the destruction of the sail barge.
If I'm being honest, I doubt it. But if I'm speaking from my heart, I'm going to accept the Robot Chicken version of events as canon. Where, yes, he crawls out of the wreckage and he's just like, oh man, I gotta get to my gig, and like wanders off to keep on spreading music. Yeah, like he's barely fazed by it. He's like, well, there's one less job I have to worry about. Yeah, gotta get to the next one. Yeah, I mean, I do love Max Rebo, so I hope that he's alive. And in Legends, it was like, he dove off at the last second. It's like, I can't really imagine Max, like, crawling out of his piano and like diving off the sail barge. That feels very hand wavy, like, oh yeah, Max Rebo survived, but I kind of doubt it. I feel like he would have tried to save the piano. Oh, he's just dragging it. He left Droopy McCool behind, but well, yeah. He needs that piano. Jess Jedi asks if someone who is non-Force sensitive can become Force sensitive. Here's where I think I'm going to make some people in the comments angry, but I think so. I think yes. Explain. Gladly. I mean, I'm very much on the side of the Force is a mental state of being. The more connected you are with yourself and the world around you, the more access to the Force you have. Yes, it can be hereditary, but you don't have to have Force-sensitive parents to become Force-sensitive. Also, it's very up in the air. Like, we were talking about this when we got to the Savage Press arc. Like, was he Force-sensitive before the Night Sisters put magic in him? Did the magic cause Force sensitivity? Like, we never see him use it. That doesn't mean... Well, we never see him use it before, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't have been using it without knowing. But then Dooku is like, I'm going to train you in the ways of the Force. Kind of as if he had never heard of it before. I think that someone can learn to become Force sensitive. Okay. I agree to a certain extent, I guess. Like, I feel like there are people like Maz Kanata, and we started to kind of see it a little bit in Finn, where just over time, they believe in it more and more, and they use it as a guide, and it kind of maybe opens their mind up a little bit more to the Force. But I don't know how well they can then turn it around and use it. Maz Kanata's an interesting one. There was a deleted scene, I think it's in the book, where she does use the Force, and they took that out. But that's a good point, and I wonder, it'd be interesting to see her young, like, because she is over 1,000 years old, and she could be someone who, was not Force sensitive, but has learned to commune with it over time. Maybe not use it at this point. Maybe that's still left in the deleted scenes. But she has connected with it more and more and more over her very long lifespan. I would say that someone who wasn't born Force sensitive, like who didn't have just a natural talent for using the Force, I don't think they would ever reach the heights of like Luke or Anakin, Rey, any of that. But I think that they could learn to control it and connect with it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw it with Rey too. Like, she was kind of unknowingly sort of using the Force little by little while she grew up, to like just survive on Jakku. And then, yeah, once she taps into it, she goes all in. Yeah.
And I think that there are probably plenty of stories like that could be told where people are using it without knowing it or letting it guide them without knowing it, kind of like Finn. And like Jannah talks about it too. So it's like, are all of those stormtroopers that defected, are they all Force sensitive, or are they just like following their conscience? Is that some element of the Force? I kind of think it is.
Yeah. I'd like to hear like George Lucas and Dave Filoni talk about this in length.
Yeah.
I think they'd have a lot to say.
Yeah. But I like the Force is in all living beings. It's just whether or not they kind of learn to use it and let it guide them.
The Golden Ticket wants to know if we could see clones becoming Death Troopers in the Bad Batch show.
I think that, what I hope the show is about is like, what do the clones do as a whole? Not just the Bad Batch, but what is the fate of this group of people whose purpose has now been lost? So could some of them are going to, stay with the Empire. They'll be stormtroopers. They'll be purge troopers. But I think it is an interesting thought to see them. What it made me think of is, so Death Troopers undergo like cybernetic enhancements. That reminded me of in Legends, the Dark Trooper Phase 0 was like, it's pretty grim, but they just took clones and did experiments on them to develop the Dark Trooper. And so I don't think they're going to go maybe that bad with it, like forced experimentation, I hope. Maybe. I mean, that's basically what happened to Echo. So
yeah, I remember reading about the Death Troopers in the Art of Rogue One book and how they kind of designed them to look like the helmets were designed to look almost as if you weren't quite sure if there was a human head in there or not. Like, they were a lot slimmer. There was just kind of this like question of, we don't know who's in there. But then they started popping up in other places and having actual voices and dialogue, which in my opinion kind of took away some of the cool factor of the Death Troopers. But I think the idea of, I mean, we know this show's going to get dark, so I think the idea of them doing experiments on clones to develop Death Troopers would be pretty on point.
I think it is definitely a possibility. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion and get a guaranteed written response. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel,
follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook,
and consider checking out both of our Twitch channels that we just recently started. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.